Hi, it's Paul Banis of GreatDad.com, and thank you very much for joining either the podcast or the YouTube version of the podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you took just a second to subscribe either on your podcast app or in YouTube. It doesn't really do anything. It's not going to send you any emails. It's just going to show up more often on your feed, and it does me a lot of good in terms of getting more exposure for this work I do to support dads. I'd also like to invite you to come to my page, GreatDad.com/go, if you'd like to discuss more about any of the issues that we are covering within the podcast, especially if there's any way I can help you to be a sounding board in your own struggles to be a dad and to be there for your family. So take a look at that. It also includes a link to my course on gratitude, where at GreatDad.com/gratitude with a offer to take that course for free. So see you in a second. Hey, it's Paul Banis with GreatDad.com, and I'm here doing my weekly series talking about modern fatherhood. And I've got a guest today that I think should be helpful to a lot of us who really love music and want to transfer that music onto their kids. And my kids are old enough that I've already ruined it for them, but hopefully we can learn some things from our guest today about how to do it right. So welcome, Andrew Ingkavet.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'm a dad, and I realized because my son, over 20 years ago now, asked me for music
Oh,
lessons,
see, that's ideal.
and I actually studied to be a music teacher at NYU, but I wasn't doing that at the time. And what happened is that I tried to find him a teacher, and I couldn't find anyone who would accept him.
At
They said
three.
come back when he's 7 or 8, and he was 3, but he was singing all the time. He's so musical. I was like, this is not, he's not going to wait. And he's got so
Yeah.
much enthusiasm and passion. So let me try to do like a homeschooling. And then I discovered, oh my goodness, there's no methods or curricula or books for this age group. And that's when I had the epiphany is like, oh, you know what? I had just spent at that point 10 years in information design, building websites and user flows and information architecture for big websites like American Express, Chase
Hmm.
Bank, HP, all these things. And so I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm the guy to do
That's
this,
cool.
to
Yeah.
figure this out. So yeah,
So
I
so
applied the
you had
design
the
thing.
situation of you've got the prototypical Mozart who's like already like trying to sit at the piano, already interested in the mechanics of it, and comes up at that with enthusiasm. Don't you think most parents are the totally opposite? They've got a kid 4 or 5, and they're thinking, I really want music to be part of their life, like I did because I didn't have music, or my wife who had 3 hours of music as a child, and we have a grand piano in the living room, and that was part of what parenting was supposed to be. And
Yeah.
then they try to find something. How often, or is your method that you teach, is it mostly for the kids who are like your son, or for general?
Oh, so that's interesting because I kind of feel like if you go to most preschools, 3 and 4 year olds, or even 5 year olds, you ask every kid in that class, who here knows how to sing? Who here knows how to dance? Who likes to do this? And
Right.
every hand will go up, right?
Mm.
But you wait a few years, like around 7 or 8,
Yeah.
and by that time the editor has started to creep in, and you say, "Who here knows how to dance?" And like only like maybe a
Right.
third of the room, maybe. And who here knows how to sing? And who likes music? And it's like they're very kind of self-selected themselves as being,
Mm.
well, I'm not good at that, so let that person do. But I don't believe that. I think that if we get them started earlier enough and give them a fun, simple way to engage with music, then virtually every kid's going to be into it. Obviously, there's exceptions,
Okay.
but because I saw this need, and it wasn't necessarily for my son, because he had me around, I can
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But when his friends started to come and take lessons, and the parents weren't musically educated,
Right.
I had to figure out how to send home lesson notes so they knew what to practice and how to practice. And most music teachers send home do page one, and it's got this
Right.
staff, and you're like, what
Goofy
the
book
hell?
from the 1960s. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like these
Old-fashioned
all these different
drawings.
things. And so I was like, that's too much. And this is pre-iPhone. So nowadays maybe you would send home a video, say, just do this.
Right.
But
Okay,
uh
so
yeah,
first rule is try to get them started younger before that editor kicks in. So far so good. I started both my kids at 5. All right. I was
okay.
tracking along. I was doing the right thing
Good,
at the
good, good,
start.
good. Well, the biggest piece of advice is well, besides using my method,
Yeah, yeah,
is that to make it something that you just say, just practice 5 minutes a day.
yeah.
And if you do more, you can always do more. But basically, what you're trying to do is make it so fun and easy that they want to keep doing it. And if you do it every day at the same time, you're basically instilling a habit. You're teaching them how to install
Yep.
the habit of practice. And then, of course, even if they're terrible, you're saying, great job, keep going, keep going. And then every day they're getting this little dopamine burst of like, hey, this is kind of cool. I can do this, and I can do a little bit more, and I can do a little bit more. So by the time they've done this for a few months, they just it's almost like you've set them in motion. And because my method uses colors, music color method, we we've made it so that the kids don't even have to ask their parents of how to practice, what to practice. So in my first book, well, my first lesson, what I do is I take their hands and I use colored markers, and I put a red here, orange, yellow, green, blue,
And you
and
got a turkey.
yeah, and I trace their hands on the page, and I color the fingers there too, and then I put colors on the piano, and then the notation just looks like colored boxes. So it's
Mhm.
like, let's count how many red boxes are here. And they say one, two, three, four, five, six. Okay, great. That means you play the red key with your red thumb. How many times?
Mhm.
6 times.
Right.
And they're like, oh, okay. So they're like, oh, this is, and then it's like basically a matching game, a color matching game. And before they know it, I have them playing with all 10 fingers because the first few exercises, they're really exercises disguised as songs, or songs disguised as exercise, or vice versa.
Right.
And they're like, they can't believe it. They're playing a song within 10 minutes. And like if you look at my first song in the book, like here's this is my first book. It's called Piano for Kids. I don't know if you can
Yep. Yep.
come clearly with the
Okay.
but then here's how I set up the keyboard, and then they got their fingers colored. And then the first song is a finger exercise.
Right.
It's just colored patterns. So it's the red one, then the orange one,
Sure.
and then there's 10 songs like that in this book. Then there's a second book, the third, it goes all the way to level 6, and
Sure.
each one is progressively a little bit more harder. And by level 6, they're actually reading music on a staff with colored note
Right.
heads. So it's like kind of like a just-in-time information process. So you
Yeah.
don't
You don't
need
want
to
to
know
overload
that this
them.
is called a treble clef
Right.
until like you're already
Right.
playing like chords and stuff.
Right.
So
Okay, well, so far so good. I mean, I track there are a lot of different methods to this, and
yeah,
I've seen numbers and colors and that
yeah,
I'm sure that helps. But I mean, our kids I think started at 15 minutes, which is three
yeah,
times longer than you suggested, which probably a lot for them even at 5. But they tended to get into this space where they were memorizing or learning a specific song, and
uh-huh,
then they had that song, and then they'd
yeah,
move on to a new song that they had to then learn. And a lot of it was rote and mechanical, but
yeah.
they never developed a feeling for how music works as math or how it can be changed or altered or how you play naturally without that, which is kind of a crutch. I mean, is written
Right,
notated music versus
right.
what composers do or people who are really into music know how to change the key or how to play, how to improvise or all those things.
So a little bit about my background. My main instrument is guitar. I
Okay.
studied Jazz
which is
guitar.
a different animal entirely in terms of
Yeah. What
forms
when
versus.
my son asked for to learn, I said you should learn piano first because he wanted to play guitar,
Uh-huh.
but now he's a better pianist than me.
Yeah.
He's amazing. But I was into rock and roll and blues and jazz. I listen to classical. I sing in my church choir. It's all classical. But I think having grown up in that world, uh, you automatically start to see like, oh, this is a one chord going to the four chord, going to the five chord. That means that it's the first chord in the scale, the fourth chord in the scale, and the fifth chord in scale. I can just transpose that to a new key because, my voice is very low. I'm not going to sing Journey at the same
Right.
octave as that guy. That guy's like in the stratosphere. So let's shift it down, and all of a sudden, the numbers of those chords, this is way, way later, but I do introduce that to these kids along the way. There's the theoretical part of music can't come before you're actually enjoying to play something. But then you start to say, hey, did you know that chord you just played there? You're doing that's the same chords that are in a million songs. That's
Right.
not only Let It Be, but it's also Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah. But I guess with our kids, that never happened. I mean, it continued to be, well, our daughter had a different piano teacher than my son did, but it kept
Mhm.
on being this kind of slap on the wrist. You got it wrong. Let's do that. Let's do that for those five measures again. No, you got it wrong. And she learned songs that she played very well in recitals, but she never through through her music classes through I don't know sophomore junior year she never made that move to what you're talking about, like understanding chord progressions in rock and roll or in classical music, or repeated
Yeah.
arpeggios, or all those things that you think that like an accomplished musician. I'm really curious about why some kids seem to grok that, and you see kids who are really great at it who practice maybe even less than my daughter did, and they somehow
Yeah.
learn it a different way. Is that a methodology thing,
I
or
think
is it a
that
music?
I think it's a mindset that you've identified that I've come across this because when I first started 10 years ago, I started looking to license my program to other teachers. And I've worked with many teachers around the
Right.
world now. Um, but there the there is a segment of piano teachers, a large, large segment who are very classical
Yeah.
trained, and they see things in a very rigid way. I have a cousin who actually was a concert pianist, and she was saying how stressful it was and how um, competitive it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like completely from the opposite side. I'm like saying we never judge our students based on like first prize, second prize. Everyone gets a certificate for just all the progress they've made to the year. So the
Yeah.
recital is like a celebration of the practice. They might flub the actual
Recital.
performance at the recital. So I think it's a mindset of like it has to be so serious, or I laugh a lot in my lessons. And when I was training some of my early licensees, I remember one of the teachers was saying, I can't believe I'm watching these videos and you're laughing so much. We never laugh in my lessons.
We never allow laughing.
So I think it's, yeah, some of it is that stylistic. In my new book that's coming out, The Superpowers Through Music, which is why I was reaching out to you. I wanted to talk about that. This book is for parents, exactly going through this whole thing. And I tell us a little fictionalized story, but it's not. It's based on real life, where a child goes to a teacher, and he deems her not worthy, and basically, I call this the powdered wig syndrome. Basically, we're still teaching music as if they're wearing powdered wigs in the 1700s, or it's like I am the God and you have to listen to what I do
Right.
and I'm on the pedestal. Whereas my philosophy is much more collaborative coach. Um, like we call ourselves music color coaches, and we're like moving kids along.
But
And
do you think some kids are just naturally wired for this in a different way, or do you think it is all teaching methodology and, as you say, mindset? Because this confuses me because our kids did spend a lot of time, and my son had a very different teaching experience that seemed to be very productive at the end. I told you a little bit before we started that he played piano and he blames me for ruining piano for him, but now he plays bass very well and plays in bands and improvises in jazz. But my daughter didn't advance to that level, and
yeah,
and yet they both aren't playing. They're not going to be playing at any kind of concert hall.
I don't know if it's all one or the other. It's of course there's going to be some kids who obviously gravitate towards music more than other ones, and will be more curious about the workings behind it. Uh, I do see that there are a lot of teachers who do not want to work with me, or I don't want to work with them because they're
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
rigid in their thinking. Um, so I think it's a combination there, and I'm not blaming you on ruining anybody's experience. I
He'll get
think
over it soon.
I think it's,
He's going to thank me, I know, at about age 20,
I think
30, maybe, when he has no
regardless,
kids.
they have benefited from this experience because music gives you this amazing sense of achievement, confidence. Even if you don't achieve fully, it's like you've learned how to learn. You've learned how to practice. I mean, isn't life about practice?
Well, that's a really good question too. Is maybe we should talk about why parents do force their kids to, in parenting, we're often um, looking for what's going to bring out something in them. Where they're little
Yeah.
adventures and they're trying all kinds of different things. We're pushing them, take a magic class, take a science class, do a baking class, and see what hits. But a lot of us feel that there are a few things that we really want to make sure they do. We want them to be usually want them to be active in some sort of sport, just if for their health. If not for getting some sort of scholarship, and a lot of us want them to do music, just to have that. uh, Maybe is there value in that, even if they don't seem to be musically inclined? I mean, maybe try to get them into at 7 or 8 when it's already too late. But are there values to that they can that are important that they get from music where we should make them do music even if that's not really their thing?
Oh, that is a bit of a loaded question because, as I mentioned before, I'm a child of tiger parents, both
Yeah,
immigrants from Asia. Uh, Bangkok, Thailand is my father, Seoul, Korea, my mother. Um, they were the only choices I had growing up was doctor, lawyer, engineer.
yeah, exactly.
When I was 14, I discovered rock and roll, and somehow I had a conversation with a social worker who said, "What do you want to do when you want to grow up? When you grow up?" And I said, "Oh, I'm gonna be a doctor, lawyer, engineer."
Right.
Like brainwashed. And he
Yeah.
kept asking me, he's like, "No, really. If you could be anything you want." I said, "Well, I want to be a rock star, of course." And he's like, "Well, you can." I was like, "What?" It was like mind blowing.
Right.
And so I had to fight to do this, and I actually got a scholarship to NYU. So it was hard for them to to
Right.
actually refute.
But it worked for you, and I think we often hear about the like how valuable it is, but we're all, as parents, we're always forced in this feeling like, did I push myself too hard? Because I didn't have tiger parents. They wanted me to do stuff, but
Yeah,
we really wanted our kids to do music. We that was
yeah.
not that there was no choice for them. They didn't get to opt out if they weren't into it. Do you think we should force music on our kids in some way because of its overall benefits?
Um, yeah, I really dislike the word force, but I would say I think every child should be exposed to music
Yeah.
as early as possible before all the noise of like sports comes in
Yeah.
religion, language class, tutoring, boyfriends and
Yeah.
girlfriends. If you do it in early childhood, there's already a benefit happening there because music is one of the only activities that actually synchronizes the whole brain. It's like whole brain thinking going on. And then you have the whole thing about social emotional learning and connection, self-awareness, all these
Right.
wonderful qualities. So uh, I would say like the forcing part is not something that I condone because you want kids to enjoy this process.
Yeah.
I didn't want my child to feel I didn't want my son to be uh like my childhood. I didn't want to
Yeah.
give him
Yep.
choices. In fact, I didn't give him lessons until he asked me like 4 or 5 times. And I was like, oh man, I guess he really wants this. Uh,
Hmm.
and then I didn't even think about I tried to get a teacher for him and nobody would take him until they said come back when he's 7 or 8. And I was like, Alejandro is so musically interested, he's not going to wait.
Yep.
So that's when I started actually developing my curricula because I took the ideas from design thinking, where I was
Yeah.
working in the world of advertising and information design, and then took my undergraduate years in NYU of music
So,
education and combined it into this new program.
so
Yeah.
did he ever stumble and want to give it up, or was it just a natural thing where
Oh,
he
you
wanted
know,
to add more and more practice on over time?
the worst part was if I tried to be the person to help him practice, we'd get into massive arguments because he would say, "No, no, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way," and or he'd get frustrated, he'd bang his hands. So I would be like, "All right, I'm going to let my wife be the one who talks
Yeah.
to him about that." And over time, because we made it so easy to succeed with all these easy lessons and it's for 5 minutes a day, and we made it like the same time every day. It was like we are about to go to school. Uh, while I'm cleaning up the kitchen after breakfast, go
Yeah.
sit at the piano. So that became piano time. And then over time, it just became a habit. It just ingrained into him his time. And then I think what really happened amazing, he went to sleepaway camp when he was about 8. And there happened to be an old broken down piano in the lunchroom at the YMCA camp. And he started just playing stuff from memory. Uh, and people started calling him Piano Guy. And he
Oh
was
yeah. And
so
that became his
excited.
identity.
It became like a whole
Yeah.
connection with people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I probably went off the question. What was the original question?
Well, I'm just curious whether there came a point where it wasn't just 5 minutes a day, but then now it's half an hour or an hour because we got to the point where we were asking them to play an hour while we were after school before they sat down to dinner. And of course, sports kind of was a conflict for all that, but
Yeah.
we all practiced an hour a day. I mean, I tried to model. I started learning at age 50 how to play the piano and
Oh, nice.
to model for my daughter. So we all practiced, and I tried to put my time in
Yeah.
front of them so they saw that. But there was a certain point where it's just like I don't have time for this. It's not fun, and they were just like they were just banging on it, rushing through the
Right.
music, going too fast, not learning the principles, and maybe at that point I should have just taken my foot off the gas and just said, "Hey, you're
So I have a school now. I have 20 other teachers who I also mentor them in our school, and that's a big question. Like especially when kids get to this age of like 12, 13,
yeah,
14.
yeah,
Um, we often recommend it's like a complete change in repertoire because if they don't like what they're playing, they're
right,
not going to
yeah,
play it. So it takes a lot more research and effort because a lot of them don't even know. So I still have 3 of my own direct students, and I had to like really find stuff when I was like playing stuff off of Spotify. The first lesson of this
yeah,
semester, I said, what do you think of this? What do you think of
right,
this? What do you think of that? And she's like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, that's not as hard as it sounds. Let's take a look at that. And she's been doing great. I was like, wow. Where I was like dreading, I was like, oh my God, I'm just forcing her to play stuff that she doesn't connect with. Now it's like she's telling me she wants to play this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the time when every kid, well, every every girl comes in and says, "I want to play this Taylor Swift song,"
Yeah. Right.
and you have to like,
And when do you move them off of annotated music that has to be played exactly correctly to something more improvisational or where they know how to read the music in off
it's really
of a lead
different
sheet
for,
versus annotated music?
yeah, it's different for every kid. So because some kids really respond to having playing Bach, only Bach.
Yeah.
I had this one child
So
who
it's arpeggiation over and over again. It's very mathematical. It's very formulaic.
and you know when you got it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then I have other kids who really struggle with reading music, traditional sense,
Yeah.
but I can give them the chord chart and they'll just like sing and play it and bang it out. And we're like, wow. So it's no one size fits all solution there.
Wow.
It's kind of that's why even though there's a ton of ways to learn music nowadays on YouTube, having a live human who
Yeah.
understands what you're trying to do and gives you feedback is very, very helpful. Of course, now some of that is being used, AI is doing some of that, but there's no empathy. There's
So
no like real connection. There's
So
no,
what resources are out there? Because in our situation, so I had very little music training. I did choir, so I had like I could kind of choir for me was like looking at the notes saying, "Oh, that one looks higher, or that one should be lower." And I'll try to like modulate, and hopefully nobody ever calls on me. And my wife, who learned 3 hours a day, but she only learned annotated music. So
yeah,
I was resourceless in terms of this kind of understanding your child, which is like a basic rule of parenting is have to meet your kids where they are. Like you say, they're wired in different ways. Some will like Bach and some will want to only play pop. Okay, so if you don't know that and you don't understand, some of them are going to be really into the strictly annotated music and others would be better off learning a lead sheet. You're kind of lost. And I didn't know any of that. And my wife didn't know any of it because all she knew was Bach.
yeah.
So how do you find teachers or how do you get other voices to come in and help you parse that out if you yourself are not musically
Yeah.
educated?
So um, it's a lot about finding the right teacher,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just personality wise, but also their understanding of childhood development.
yeah,
So when I started this program, I started training other teachers. I was very, very anxious because I felt a little bit like an imposter because I can't play piano at a super high level.
yeah,
But as I realized, I think there's like three levels of teacher that a child should have. They should have like that early childhood, the early beginnings foundational teacher who's just like inspiring the spark, the fun
yeah,
of
yeah, 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 yep,
magic, right?
yep, yep,
Then as soon as they get to a certain level, maybe they need a new teacher, or if that teacher can take them up to a higher level of understanding, and maybe start to explore like other styles and genres,
yeah,
and then once very few kids or very few people go to that third master level because at that level they're looking to specialize in a very tiny little area like I want to just be this classical concert pianist, or I want to be the jazz guy,
yeah,
or I want to play Metallica.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
that's the thing is most music teachers think that they have to be that master teacher. But think about that. That means that you have like
yeah.
so few customers even who are interested in that, first of all, you know?
I'd posit that if you're doing this and you're thinking about bringing your kids into music, it'd be better to wait a year or not do it at all rather than to give them over to somebody who slaps their hand or
Oh
is
yeah.
that real old fashioned. Hopefully, we have fewer and fewer of that type of teacher around, because any teacher now shouldn't be just doing it for the hourly the hourly fee, they should have that love of inspiring a child rather than just
Yeah.
educating a child.
It's um it's kind of crazy that ever became a thing, but it's about like it's like the same thing that happened in this in just education before Montessori created the Montessori method. Those they just thought of
Right.
children, little adults. It was like
Yeah.
there was no sense of like, oh, you got to get a student-sized chair.
Yeah.
It's like that wasn't even a concept. My wife actually she has a master's in developmental psychology from Teachers College at Columbia, and she has basically been the hidden secret behind my whole method
Oh
because
yeah. Yeah. Great.
she vets everything. And years ago, we were living on campus, and I got to sit in on a conference that the granddaughter of Montessori was talking about the whole method. And this is way before I had a child. But I was like, oh my God, I'm like thinking back to that time, saying, yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah.
So the same thing happened in general education. There was a strict way of like mass producing students to work in factories or whatever. And music was like militaristic and like hierarchical, and you had to follow the sensei, and and then started other people started realizing, wait a second, it doesn't have to be so unfun.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think this conversation really made it clear to me yet in another area of parenting how much you just have to really be attuned to your child, but also find them the right resources. Quite often, it's like the school has they have the music teacher that comes in once a week, and it's convenient because they just leave their last class and they just go right into that music thing. But that might be the worst thing you can do actually for your child if that teacher is not going to inspire your child, even if it ticks that doing piano box, maybe it's the wrong thing.
Yeah, I didn't expect this conversation to go in this direction, but I um I think the it's all about your child's growth and their emotional well-being, and mental health is a part of that as well.
Sure.
So you know, just knowing who your teachers are is an important part of every parent's journey. Going to the parent-teacher conference and getting a sense of is this teacher actually seeing my child uh, as I see them, and
Right.
um, are they or are they going to be a harm to them? We've been very involved in my son's journey, and luckily, I'm happy to say, as I was telling you before, that he's 23 now, and he graduated from Brown University, and he's doing fantastic. He's still living at home, but he has his own job, and he's actually traveling all the time. So
Yeah. Well, that's good, especially since the school music programs used to be included in, but now you're paying for them. So on top of making the wrong choice, you're now paying for something that maybe is being deleterious to your child's music education. So
well, I
put
want
some
to
thought through this.
advocate that all policymakers start rethinking that, because I think music is super important, as
Yeah.
foundational as a person. Like, think Plato said, like, if I was going to have anything for a child, it would be mathematics and music, and and gymnastics, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a yeah big believer and big supporter. Well, Andrew, thanks a lot for taking some time to spend with me. You've got I do want to ask you one last question, but I want to make sure people get the URL and we'll put it in the show notes. So it's musiccolormethod.com has the color coded charts and the methodology, both if you're interested in doing a franchise thing because you're a music teacher, or if you are interested
Eric.
in
Yeah.
the
And my new
books.
book, Superpowers Through Music, there's a website you can go there too and get some free bonus material especially about the social emotional learning aspects of music. So
Yeah.
that's coming out sometime in 2026. The publisher hasn't told me the exact date yet.
All right. So, do you have any other advice, maybe music related or non-music related, uh, for dads with young kids that you learned after over 23 years of parenting?
Okay. I think the one thing that rings true for me is that um, knowing the age and stage of your child for appropriate boundaries, because I've seen many examples of parents sitting in my living room where they had no boundaries and
Mhm.
kids were just like, you give them anything they want and oh, it's just the worst thing. Obviously, at some point, you have to let go as well, and that's something that I think we did pretty well. My son is super independent. We had to, even though we were super nervous, he would say, "I want to go by myself to middle school on the bus."
Yeah.
Oh
And you
my
live in
God.
Brooklyn, you live in New York
Yeah.
City.
I
So
was like, "Oh my God. All right, I'll go with him the first time and make sure he's okay, and then I put an iPhone in his pocket too.
right.
So he could
Put a
track
tracker in there.
And then it was like fine. He was like he learned that skill of independence, and now today he's in Buenos Aires,
Yeah.
traveling on his own.
Well, that's great. I mean, we always talk about the fact that it's a lot easier to create boundaries and then reduce them. It is a lot harder to give like total freedom and never have any boundaries, never have any rules, and then
That's right.
suddenly impose them one day. Not only do you feel like you're the totally uncool dad, but it really confuses the kid as to what's going on here. So I think that's really good advice.
Thanks. Yeah, I've seen that many, many times in my teaching. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody else.
Great. All right. Ball Banners with GreatDad.com. Thanks a lot to Andrew Ingkavet
Think
for
of it.
joining for joining us today. You can find my coaching materials at greatdad.com/go, including class on gratitude. There's nothing in there in music since I don't think I'm quite qualified to do that, having ruined piano for my son. All
No,
right.
no,
Until
no.
next time, remember a strong and happy family starts with you. Take care.